Hi YouTube. What we're looking at here is 30, you can count them if you want, there's 30 plastic buckets that I bought. I got my original buckets that I showed in the first two videos, I got them for free, and these I had to buy. And of course, if you're making a bucket garden, that's the first thing you need. And this is quite a lot of buckets. 30 is a lot of buckets. But I'm still going to probably try to get more. Anyway, these came from a company that that makes they make some kind of juice, and I bought these things. They were dirty when I bought them. I had to clean them all, which was not an easy job. I want to tell you right now, it was not easy. But anyway, I cleaned them all. I washed them all out in my bathtub. It took a few hours to do it. And they had originally some kind of nut butter in them. And I washed them all out. Now, I think $2 each is a little expensive, but if you buy these kind of buckets new, these are food grade buckets, which is better than food safe, and that's better than just any old regular plastic bucket. The good thing about food grade buckets is there's going to be no carcinogens or anything else in the soil or in the water. They're perfectly safe to use with food, so I'm going to guess that because of that, they're perfectly safe to use in a bucket garden. Now, last year I used Home Depot buckets, the orange ones, and I'm not completely sure if those are fully 100% safe or not, but since these are cheaper than Home Depot buckets, which cost about $3.50, and they're also food grade, I think it's a better deal. Now, this will be the first thing you need to make a bucket garden, obviously, and I'm going to show you some more stuff that you need to make a bucket garden in this video, and that should be coming up next. Right here we're on the Granger website, and they sell industrial things. They also have these float valves, and that's the kind I have. I don't really recommend this one. This is the one I recommend. It's made in America for one thing, and it's a little bit shorter, and the other good thing about it is it has a wing nut instead of a screw. It makes it easier to adjust. This is the one I'd recommend you get. Now, you'll also need one of these things. This is an Icemaker Connection, and it'll help connect between this part that you see here. This goes on the hose, and it'll connect up to the float valve. Now, this is the hose, and you should probably get two of these. One to connect from your spigot to the float valve, and the other one to cut up to use for parts. Now, this is a barbed T, and you'll need one per bucket roughly of these things. This is a barbed coupler, and you need one for every 2 buckets. And of course, this is not part of the design, but I recommend you get one of these. This is a step drill set, and it makes making one of these bucket gardens way easier, trust me. So I'm just going to do a quick comparison on these two float valves. That smaller one there is American, and it's a little bit more expensive. You can see it's quite a lot shorter than this other one. This one here is made in China, and I really don't, even though it's made from brass, I don't think it's as good of a choice. It's cheaper, but you get that screw on there, and that's what you need to adjust to raise and lower the height so that you can adjust the water, and it really isn't that easy to do. Now this one, you can see it has a wing nut on there, and that makes it way easier. You don't need any tools to adjust it, and you can do it when it's right in the bucket, so it makes it way easier. It's been raining around here a lot, and it's been kind of cold too. So I'm going to show how to set one of these things up, one of these systems, but I'm not going to try to do the planting today because it was raining earlier and now it isn't, but it's kind of late in the day to get started doing that. So that's going to have to wait until a future video, hopefully the next one, but not this time. Okay, now I've prepared these buckets. This will be 2 planting buckets, 2 reservoir buckets right here, and this other one has got the float valve in it, and I'm using the small float valve. Now I cut these hoses what I think is a little bit long, but it really depends on your setup, how long you'd want those. And I put this float valve 4 inches from the bottom of that of the bucket here. Now it's going to really, 4 inches is probably about right, but it all depends. You might want it a little higher. I don't think you'd want it lower. And I've got this screwed on just finger tight. Doesn't really have to be, none of this stuff really has to be cranked on with a wrench. This one here, you might want to tighten it up a little bit with a wrench. And I don't have it set because I don't know how high it's gonna need to go. I have it marked 1, 2, 3 inches inside there, and it's important to do that because you need to know it's got to be, you want that water, once you've got everything together here, you want it about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch below the bottom of your planting bucket. Okay, 1/2 to 1 inch below, and that depends on your buckets. So there's no way for me to tell you exactly how to do this, but it has to be about 1/2 to 1 inch below. Okay, now sticking these buckets together really couldn't be easier. All you do is just push these in, and we're all connected up. Those won't leak. If they do leak, I guess you could use some kind of a pipe clamp and do that, but they pretty much don't leak, so you don't need to worry about it. Now I've found that you don't need to, once again, you don't need to do much more than just make these finger tight, and that includes this one. You could crank them on there a little bit with a wrench, but you don't really want them way tight. And then the hose itself, this would be no different than if you were putting something onto a hose. Now this is all ready to go. This is a 3 bucket system here, and we're going to see what happens. So I turned on the water, and we're going to wait and see how high this goes to see how much it needs to be adjusted. Okay, now this water at this point is about 2.5 inches deep inside these buckets. Well, you know, it might take a little while for the rest of these to reach that level. But you can see this is coming on. So it's set right now at about 2.5 inches. It might take you a try or two before these buckets get set exactly to where you want them. So here we're just waiting for the water to reach the level. And I should mention, all these buckets, all of them together, all these 5, the main reservoir buckets, these 2 reservoir buckets, and the planting buckets, it only took me half an hour to get all those prepared. So it really does not take that long to do it. And it looks like this valve is just about ready to shut off. I also want to mention that on that Chinese float valve, that was a serious pain in the ass for me to get set the way that I wanted. It took me probably 8 or 10 tries before I got it just right. And so this one is way easier to do. And I'm not kidding you when I say that. It's a lot easier. It's a better design, it really is. So we're waiting for this water to come up to level, and what it looks like the water is about 2.25, 2.5 inches, and that might be enough. I'm going to check. So 2.5 inches isn't enough. It should be 3 inches from the bottom, should be 1 inch from the bottom of the planting bucket, 1 inch or less, and you can see, since that's 4 inches, I need to raise it up a little bit. Okay, now this valve is just about ready to shut off, and we're right at 3 inches. It could go a little higher, but 3 inches I think is okay. So this thing is all set up. It actually took longer to get this valve set where I wanted to than it did to make these buckets. So this is ready for soil, and then plants. Same thing here. Very quick, very easy. This float valve here, 4DMD1 on the Granger website, is the one you want. Believe me, it is. That other one, that Chinese brass one, is a lot more difficult to deal with. If you're going to do this, get this one. Now, I did say that I was going to do some planting, but I'm not going to today because I just don't have time. It's getting late in the day, and it's almost dark actually. And so that's going to have to be for the next video, be about a week I guess, before I get that done. Good night.